And we're live, people. Deluded. I'm back again. Dennis Burkham for Thierry Henry. We're back, man. We got Alex in the building. We said, my guy.
We've even got Arsenal kits on. So
yeah, man. I got the memo still.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Nice kit.
Hi, even better one that you lot got. I was wearing that one yesterday, man. I should have told you in advance. We could have been matching.
It's nice. Where'd you get that?
To be honest, I think it came out couple years ago. Adidas brought out like the legacy kind of kits, like the remakes. I just happened to be online. I bought it immediately. Do you think of the new kits?
I really like the home kit. I really like
it. I must admit, same. You know, I like it a lot more than I gave it credit.
Yeah, because I thought like the A would be too much. You know, like even on this kit, it's got like but you don't really notice it. But I thought you'd really notice the A, and it was gonna be too much. But it looks really good.
Yeah. Have you got it?
£85. Just out of principle, I'm just like, no. Just like,
I'm waiting to see what we're doing in the market, man. Before the club needs to tie me back in, man. I can't lie to you, man. It has been a long time, man, since you've caught a stream stylish. Big up everyone tuned in. I can't imagine you're not, but make sure you're subscribed to the Different Knock and all the sub channels. We got a lot to discuss, man. But I want to ease you into this. Like, with it all being said and done, I know we got 2 games left. How do you feel as an Arsenal fan, man? You know, 2 semi-finals, went out the FA Cup. I'm sure you've spoken about the league. How are you feeling, all things considered?
I'd love to say, like, you know, positive and, you know, like, yes, okay, we got to semi-finals, but you know, we're second, whatever. But like, I am kind of feeling, and maybe it's just because of like sort of how close we are still to the season. We're still in the season. Doesn't feel like it, but we still are in the season. Yeah, man. I'm just like, I'm not throwing anything, and I'm not saying like, you know, we can't do anything. But right, like, if I have to be totally honest, right now, my optimism levels are probably the lowest they've been in a long time. I do think, like, logically, you can look through the season and go, yeah, the injuries and the red cards and, you know, this thing, and if we sign the right players and if, but it's a lot of ifs, and we're doing ifs every single season, and there's no divine right to go and win a Premier League or Champions League. So yeah, it's concerning. Look, there is positives, and there's a lot.
Let us know.
Well, look, it depends how you want to look at it. Like, but I have to say, like, I think it is a choice at this point to be like, right, you know, there's a loads of positives, and we should look at those. Yeah, what are we, 5 years into the project? It's starting to get concerning. So yeah, I think it's okay to say that, and it doesn't mean, you know, for anyone who, you know, supports Arteta or doesn't, or whatever. Like, it's okay to be like, actually, this is concerning, and we have a massive summer ahead of us, and I'm hoping to hear more stuff soon.
I mean, even you're sounding quite cheesed off, if I'm honest. Not that you're throwing your toys out the pram or whatever, and you're disregarding any potential positives or making out everything's great or everything's amazing, but you're normally a lot more upbeat, man. Like, you sound a bit frustrated. What is the frustrations? You kind of alluded to it. Is it a case of we're so close, and then you could argue we're so far? Like, you mentioned 5 years, which you're all right. I look at the last 3 years in total, like 2022, 23 up until this point. Of course, there's different reasons, different contexts. The bottom line is we haven't reached the holy grail, the promised land of a trophy. You know, it's nice to flirt with the semi-finals and things. And I hate to say it, but it does feel a bit like courageous losers, if I'm honest with you. Like, where does the frustration come with for you if you are frustrated?
Yeah, I am frustrated, and like, probably that'll dissipate a little bit, but it's from, I guess, feeling 2 things. One, I feel like we played so much of the season with our hands tied behind our back, to be honest,
blindfolded.
Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, I looked at the end of that Liverpool game, and we didn't have Gabriel, Havertz, Tommy, Jorginho. I think Deck came off. Trossard came off.
Weren't there?
There was I think there was like 9 first team players unavailable. And, you know, we're told, you know, well, it doesn't matter. Don't make excuses. What? At what point, like, you know, if Liverpool had Jota and Gravenberch and, you know, Curtis Jones and Van Dijk and Konate, like, if you just went through their whole team and just completely ripped it, is that fair? Would we think, oh, it's fair to say excuses? But the fact is, we are also 5 years into a project and we haven't won anything. So, like, those 2 things together really, really, really frustrate me. Oh, sorry, no, Deck didn't watch, didn't play. So yeah, it's holding those two things together is really, really hard, because it's like I do absolutely see the context of this season and how it's played out, and I absolutely see that. We're also so close. Like we're two, that Saka chance away from putting something in the back of the net, and I can make so many allowances for this team. Like I don't really blame the players. I guess my frustration is more with like almost like the situation. It's like you're like something's happened, and you're like, I'm not actually angry at anyone. It's just the situation is so mad. Do you know what I mean? It's like it just feels really. So yeah, I'm not. I fully back Arteta. I fully back the players. I fully back this executive team that they are trying and they're going to do something in the summer. I genuinely, really, really believe. I look at
we trust, man.
Mate, 100%. And also like Saka, Saliba, Rice, Gabriel. These are top level players. But there comes a time when you can have the worst injury luck in the world. You can do absolutely everything right. You can find bargains in the market. You can do the best contract work. You can revamp the stadium. You can make the best kits. You can do absolutely everything right, and you can still not win. And it's that frustration that I think is it's like when you feel like in your life you're just like hammering away at something and just nothing's coming off. It's annoying, basically.
I want to stay on this topic because it is annoying. Yeah. What do you pull it down to this season? Like, what do you, obviously you can't just pull it down to one thing. You could throw in the transfer market, refereeing decisions, us not closing out games, maybe Mikel Arteta, in my opinion, not evolving tactically, like completely off topic. But I feel in every man's life and every coach's life, there's a point where everything changes. And I think this season is something Mikel Arteta has to learn from as a personal coach, let alone Arsenal. But like, if you had to put it down to one thing as to ultimately why our season hasn't gone where we want it to be, what would it be for you?
I think you have to say injury. If you have to say one thing, you have to say injuries for me. But look, it's up to everyone listening and what they think. They can say, the big factor this season is Mikel not being able to rotate his squad. Like, fair enough, and like that's I don't have a perfect answer. No one has a perfect answer.
No one does. Yeah,
if that's what you want. But I think it's about looking at like the. Yeah, it's. I guess it's holding that frustration of so many things. We can make a list of like, well, if the red cards hadn't happened, and if the injuries hadn't happened, and if the fixtures hadn't happened at the start of the season, and if so and so scored that chance, and and all those things are true, like they are true. It just depends.
They're all ingredients.
They're all ingredients, so you can pick which one you think is the number one ingredient. It's up to you, but. Yeah, I guess the frustration is none of it matters in the end. If you have to pick one, I'd say injuries for this season, because like I can't look at 9 players out against Liverpool. I can't look at our back line actually in the reverse fixture against Liverpool. I can't look at the fact with no Gabriel in the run and no Havertz. Like that feels like the big thing. But in 20, 30 years time, no one's going to go, but didn't they have a couple of red cards?
No, but we've won 2 trophies this year, Alex, man. We beat Madrid and we beat City, man. They will remember this 20, 30 years. But I think you're bang on the money in that. That's the annoying thing. I do want to ask a follow-up question then, because it's a good topic to stay on. Like, obviously, we know the club tries to sign players, trying to do stuff. Whether they've done it or not is another thing. But you look at the squad depth, I think it's intangible, but I think it's different. But you mentioned rotation. At what point, I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, the injuries unlucky or is it incompetence? Because we know, for me anyways, because I asked you about putting it down to one thing. I know this is very naive. I pull it down to the summer. I believe in life, you start as you mean to go on. I don't think we had the numbers. I don't think we added on to the quality. So at what point, is it like we know it's going to rain, we're standing in the rain and we haven't got a jacket? Is that incompetence or stupidity? How far does the injury excuses as far as Arsenal internally go for you then?
Yeah, again, it's all ingredients in the thing, and obviously you may feel that the summer is the main ingredient. I think the injuries are the main ingredient. It's both, and how much of each is kind of up to each individual person. I think the summer was objectively not good enough, and I don't know.
Objective, Alex, it weren't, man. We bought Sterling in on deadline day, bro.
No, not good enough.
Oh, fair enough. I misheard. frustration.
like in hindsight, look, I have to say at the end of the window, I was going like it's like a 7 out of 10 because I was looking at it and I was thinking, and I was going like, okay, you know, Sterling, that's a, you know, at the time in August, this is what I'm saying. Like, you know, we're signing a established Premier League player who's probably going to get, you know, 10, 12 goals, maybe 8, 9 assists or something like that.
Arteta can change him
off the bench. Yeah, you know, he can get him going again. You know, you're looking, we just found Havertz at the end of last season. You're thinking probably we might be okay for another season. Maybe we probably still need that top forward, but you know, maybe we can get through and get by. We're not that far away. You're looking at, you know, Calafiori and Marino and stuff, and you're saying, okay, like, yeah, okay, we didn't do the thing we absolutely would love to do, but 7 out of 10.
It's not the best, but it's not the worst kind of thing.
Because you're two points away. So if you sign 3 players on top, you think, okay, well, you know, maybe we could do it, and that's depth, and that was the one thing that people were asking for last time. But that it just didn't work out that way. So I think it's hard because you're judging things in retrospect, and at the time I was going, I think that's actually an all right window. But ultimately, you're judged by your results, and that didn't work out. But again, you know, Marino was injured when he came in. Calafiori was 5.5 months injured. Raheem Sterling is just, that's a whole.
He's just Raheem Sterling, man. That's the nicest way to put it.
Whole different kettle of fish. But no doubting that the part of, you know, this season has this season has many fathers of this failure, and the injuries are one, but the summer absolute, and also not reacting in January is I think, but also then you go, okay, but who's responsible for that?
This is what I'm talking about.
Who's responsible for the injuries? Who's responsible for that ingredient? And that's
all in it.
Yeah, that's another complicated question, because it's like, okay, Mikel's taking advice from medical staff, but also he's the one playing them. Is he ignoring the advice? I can't believe that. Is he wrongly advised? Is he responsible for this structure? Does he need to change certain things? You know, you read about Arne Slot's like ability to keep players going and how he does things. Like, does he need to look at that? So it's not just the injuries and they're Arteta's fault. It's loads of people. But as I say, in the end, you take a step back. No one's going to remember. Yeah, but it was in 20 years. Yeah, but it was that summer. Or yeah, but it was, you know, was he taking the right medical advice? No, exactly. So that's the frustration for me.
And that's the thing, man. Like, you know, it starts in August, it ends in May. A week's a long time in football. That's 38 game weeks. You know, 1 minute one player's a hero and then they're a failure according to what happened. But in the end, as you said there, 20 years from now, no one's going to matter. Now, I know how social media gets. We all know the teams that are potentially languishing in relegation potential places, and they might win trophies and they've had better seasons than us, etc., etc. I'd say completely off topic, but the one scary thing is actually Newcastle. If they go and win their next 2 games, they finish above us and won a League Cup. We haven't really got a leg to stand on. Do you feel like, how do I make this make sense? Like, this is a bit of a difficult question. Do you feel like we've evolved? Because maybe I'm looking at it naively, but the 2022-23 season, I think we needed to improve defensively, and I think that scarred Arteta, as we've discussed before, but we're known for our attacking brand. The year after that, so last season, we was known as a good defensive side, and I think I could smell that kind of in the air with our team. This year, I don't know what we're significantly good for. It feels like we've winged it. We've kind of just maintained what we're kind of good at and just chugging it along. Like, do you feel we've improved at anything, or do you feel we've stagnated or regressed? Like, where are you at with that?
I think you could take the perspective that we've got less points and we haven't won a trophy, so no. But I think there's certain things we have evolved in. I think there's finding different ways of playing. You know, we found, you know, Marino at centre forward. We found, you know, Miles over the course of the season. We found Waneri. I think Declan Rice has pushed on. I think David Raya has pushed on. So I think there's certain individuals and certain aspects of the system. And I actually think we're like second for like goals from substitutes or something. There's like, in terms of dealing with the circumstances that have been arisen, playing with 10 men, I think we've actually done that really well in general.
We've reacted to adversity.
Conceded like 1 goal or something with 10 men. So yeah, like I think there's certain aspects, but again, it pales in comparison to ultimately. You know, you could go, yeah, no, but we've actually, you know, considering the circumstances, we've pushed forward. It's very hard to make that argument when you look at the points totals and when you look at, you know, how we've done. So I don't know, like, it's like, do you know what it's like? It's like Arteta coming out after the PSG game and saying we played better than them.
It's been like, the best team in the Champions League.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you actually might be, by certain metrics, like, you know, expected assists and XG and things like, you might be right, but just don't say it. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you say Arsenal evolve this season, you might be correct in a few senses. It's just not worth. It's not worth that being your takeaway from the season for me, anyway. So
And you know the fallout when you say these statements as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I can't look at the season and say we progressed. I think we did in certain areas, and I think that we dealt with the hand we were dealt pretty well, to be honest. But yeah, I find it very hard to sit here at the end of the season and review it and go, yeah, I actually think we pushed on this season.
You'd be an idiot to say that, man. You'd be lying to your subscribers, bro. Like, like a blind man could see that. It's, you know, we all know what was said at the end of last season against Everton, and ultimately we failed to deliver. I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier, and for me, if I feel sorry for anyone, it's the players. Like, everybody's in this together. I'm not one of those fans that it's all Arteta, it's all the board, it's all the players. It's everybody. Everybody's done something to contribute negatively to where we're at. I feel sorry for the players because I can question their ability, you know, whether they're the right option, yada, yada, yada. But I've seen people play with injuries. I've seen people step up. Of course, these guys are playing. So when we've dropped points indirectly, you are to blame. But I feel sorry for the players. And then I just look at the whole club. Like I mentioned the summer, and then I mentioned January, or you mentioned January better yet. And that's where I looked at everyone a bit weird. Of course, I'm not a fly on the wall. I understand you don't want to sign players for the sake of it and powder dry and everything. But then I thought about it, like, even if Arteta didn't want any players in January, then he's a bit of a wallad, if I'm honest. But if I assume that he didn't want players, like if he genuinely didn't want players, and you was above Mikel Arteta, whether you're Cronkies or whatever, and you're looking at our season as how we can salvage it, and players are dropping like flies, maybe I'm a bit naive, but I think other clubs like a Madrid or something, they would still act. And I felt sorry for the players because you got Declan Rice coming out and saying, oh, Tierney has to play left wing. I'm sure they want to act. That told me that we just think we're cool to get top four. Do you think this is a summer where like players might think, okay, the bubble's kind of popped? You know, you look at the 2022-23 season, we weren't expected to be in that. We was expected to drop away and everyone was going to be amazing last year. This year, as you said, you know, we came into it 2 points or so off City. Do you think this is one where the players are probably questioning like where we're going as a football club?
I don't know. What is a wallad, by the way?
Like an idiot, like just wallad, bro. Like a wallad.
Yeah, potentially. Look, I think you're touching on something quite interesting there, though, on the ownership, which is about the sort of that attitude. And I think that not reacting in January, like the Ollie Watkins thing, if you could pinpoint for me the most annoying thing about this season is basically we went Ollie Watkins for what is that? You know, what is it, 60 million or something like that? Well, we'll only go to 40.
Remember, he was offered to us as well. We didn't go out there trying to get him as well.
And Ollie Watkins, by the way, like Arsenal need a lot this summer. Ollie Watkins can play in multiple positions. He's 29. This is the whole thing about age at the minute. People are like, bro, he's like nearly 30. Well, we need to win now. We're not thinking about winning in 5 years' time. We need to win that. So why? Okay, he's 29. That's okay.
How old was Vardy when he first kicked a Premier League ball? He's 28.
Exactly. And Ollie Watkins at the end of the season, what could that have done for us? I don't know. But yeah, so that I think what you're hitting on is yeah, you could call it a lack of ambition. I don't know exactly. Maybe it's too much focus on strategy and long-term thinking and value, whatever. But what you're bang on about is Real Madrid, and this is the key point that I'm trying to stress to Arsenal fans. We have to remember what we're aiming for and who we're competing with. It's all very well making arguments and saying, yeah, but, you know, for example, with Martinelli, you know, why don't we get him an overlapping fullback? And why don't we do this? And, you know, why don't we extend that person's contract because we can save £10 million there? And no, but Ollie Watkins will probably be a little bit cheaper in the summer. So, okay, do you know what? You're probably right. But can I tell you what your rivals are doing? Spending £200 million in January and then another £200 million in the summer.
Seizing the opportunity in the present moment. That is something we need to do as a club.
You said it. So like, again, you're probably right that Ollie Watkins wasn't the perfect, you know, value or whatever. You're probably right that, you know, if we put Martinelli inside and got him more touches or what, you know, we can have a discussion about that. But what are your rivals doing? That, like, if you look at them, they're not operating that way. And that's who we're aiming for. I sometimes think we're still in a bit of project mode. Like we're still in kind of, you know, balancing the books and all these sorts of things. Like we're still in that sort of headspace 100% sometimes. And sometimes I look at decision-making, you know, that we make, and this is away from the fans, this is just the board. That Ollie Watkins thing feels like basically long-term, you know, he's not got resale value, etc., etc. Okay. But if Mikel Arteta doesn't win something next season, probably, I don't know, but it would depend on the context. But I would say a big majority of fans will be saying it's probably time for him to move on.
People want the guy gone now.
Well, yeah.
And last year. Want him gone yesterday.
Exactly. So, okay, yeah. So you can wait. Yeah, you can wait another year. Well, he'll be gone. So then the whole thing will be. So, like, at what point are you just going to act? It's strange to me. I will say, like, that type of thinking has a lot of value in terms of getting us here, in terms of building this squad, in terms of building this, building the group we have, and aside from maybe like Havertz and Jesus, like wage wise, we're in pretty good nick and things like that, and contract wise, in pretty good nick. But yeah, there is you hit it on nail on the head. Kvaratskhelia is available for £60 million. We need.
Look what he would have done for us, man. I love Martinelli, but mate, you're gonna have to hold bench. Yeah. Would have been amazing.
So yeah, I do think there's a slight mentality shift. And to answer your question about the players, yeah, eventually they must be looking at it. They must become what stood on the Anfield pitch, looking around and going, well, "You're not here, and you're not here, and you're not here, and you're not here," and no one tried to sign anyone in the summer. You're just running me into the ground. Like Saliba, how many minutes has he played? Gabriel, how many minutes has he played? Saka, yeah.
Look at the hamstring injuries, or the amount of hamstring injuries. I'm no physio, but there's got to be a correlation with a lot of these players have played a lot of football, not just this year, but the year before, and obviously for club and country. And me and you could have probably a stream in itself about player welfare. It's not going anywhere. You can see the Club World Cup. You can see the World Cup next year. It's not going anywhere. Now, for me, I'd like to think I'm a fair individual. I don't know how many players it would have been, but had I have left the summer window or January, but let's just focus on the summer, thinking we've got enough added quality to the starting 11 and enough depth. And this injury stuff still happened. I would say, that is unlucky to me, because you proactively tried to put your best foot forward. It felt like we had a small squad, even if everybody's fit. And then even that whole if everyone's fit, you go through the squad and means test it. There's a lot of players that we're not shocked about being injured. So I do think we need to kind of get out the project mode. But then again, you caveat that with Mikel Arteta is, unfortunately, he's still a project in himself. It's almost like two side projects. You've got Project Arteta trying to develop him as a manager. Then you've got Arsenal, you intertwined. Then Bert has just come in. The man has signed a new deal, last September for 15 mil. I know fans won't want to hear this on YouTube, but for me personally, and I'm not saying you can't have your conversations about if Arteta is the guy, if he's not, if he doesn't do it next season, we've got to ask questions. I just find it redundant, because fundamentally the man's staying in it. So it's like, with all of this being said, how do we move on? This is a good question as well, man. Do you think our season turns out differently if Ollie Watkins is signed in January? You look at the amount of draws, maybe that's half, then there's different conversations.
Possibly, maybe you get over, you change a couple of draws into wins. Maybe, who knows what happens to that PSG game. But I think maybe more to the point, it could have helped us in this season, and then it could have helped us in the summer. We had if that was the player that we're going to go out and sign players this summer, right? I pray. We're going to
just as I said, man,
and sign players, right? I just, if we go and pay like Nico Williams's release clause, like it's difficult because you don't know who really was available in January, who was available to move. But my suspicion is money talks, and if there's a player that you're talking to for a long time, and you say to them, and Benjamin Šeško could have come in January, or whatever. Clubs obviously don't want their players to move in January. That's absolutely fair enough. But you can push and you can make stuff happen. You can do loan deals, etc.
So if you don't, you have to hold that.
Yeah. So if we either could have moved something that we wanted to do in January, so wanted to do in the summer to January, that would have been great. Also, I don't know, and we can just say, well, no one's available in January. We don't know either way. We don't know who was available. We don't know who wasn't available. We don't have access to that information. All I'm saying is, if there was someone who could have come, and maybe we just needed to pay an extra £5 or £10 million, that it helps you in the short term and the long term, and that's why you pay a little bit of a premium. It's okay to pay a bit of a premium sometimes. That's what the best clubs do occasionally.
It should be. We did it for Rice. And we ain't missing that. We probably owe West Ham a lot more money, man. I must admit, Arteta, this is why I'm on YouTube and you're a professional manager. I have been converted into the Declan Rice 8 stuff. Like I'm here for it. That doesn't mean there's not questions, but I'm fully here for it. I think he fully knows what he's doing. Speaking of that, completely off topic before we go back, before I forget, Martin Odegaard, what have you made of the captain this season? Like, do you think he's getting back to his best? I think he had a decent game against Liverpool. It's been a tough season, man.
He hit the football hard, which is been a concern for him. Yeah, it's been a tough season. I do think a lot of this is physical, down to the physical aspects of the game. I just don't think he looks quite right. So I hope there's something that he can fix there over the summer. Hopefully a rest will do him good. There's something that actually George on the kind of podcast said, and I think is so true. Like, I just don't want to have to squint to see talent anymore. I don't want to have to go, are you good? Like, are you? Like the best talent just hits you in the face. That doesn't mean you move on from Odegaard. I'm not saying that about Odegaard particularly or whatever, but I just think with Odegaard at the minute, I'm kind of going, okay, you're dropping out the block and you're giving me progressive stuff. That's great. And I'm seeing like some nice balls in the final third occasionally. I'm seeing a lot of limitations, but I'm sort of going, but if I did this and I did this and I did this, the very best players in the world thrive no matter the game state. No matter the game state. And I think there is, I think with Odegaard, he's got a lot of credit in the bank, so I'm willing to see more and I'm willing to allow him. But a lot of the arguments for sort of this, not sort of, but basically the idea that like Odegaard just can't come out the team is to do with the out of possession stuff and the sort of the way he handles things. Everything's a balance. Someone like Kai Havertz, I think, absolutely could lead our press. We have to get comfortable talking about
keyword leading the press. He can do all that off the ball stuff. You're right.
We have to get comfortable saying, what is Martin Odegaard knowing the triggers and working hard off the ball? What, how much is that against the in possession difficulties he's had? We have to weigh these things up. And he's not untouchable to me. Like he isn't at this point. And I think I have to say how I feel. And over the two courses of over the 4 games against Madrid twice and PSG twice, I wasn't.
It weren't enough.
It wasn't enough. So yeah. So I'm he's not coming out my team. He's got a lot to offer. He absolutely could turn it around if he starts performing again in possession specifically. I'll be really excited. He's also not had the unit around him with Saka and White and stuff. There's lots of mitigating circumstances. But I have to say I'm not as attached to him. Let's say last summer, he would be one of the first things on my team sheet. He's now just an option for me. And if you told me that we're going to change things slightly, I'd be more open to it, basically.
How realistic is it, do you feel, that either somebody directly comes in that's either an upgrade on Odegaard or competes with Odegaard? I say that because most people would want a striker that comes with a premium, potentially left wing. Zubamendi is going to cost 50, 60, and I don't know if Arteta wants another midfielder depending on what happens with Partey. We're linked with goalies and probably linked with a left back or some level of defender. Now, all of these are important, but some would say Odegaard either needs competition or we need an upgrade or we need someone to take him out the firing line. I don't know why Vieiraa not being blooded a bit more in that role or hasn't got more minutes, but what would you say to that?
I don't know. It's tricky because I want 2 forwards. I want a backup keeper. I want probably another DM. I might want two defenders depending on what's happening with Tomiyasu. So there's a lot going on. We've got Vieiraa out on loan. For me, I think Odegaard, Vieiraa and Waneri is enough, certainly till January, in terms of creativity in the squad. And I think after a summer of rest, a bit more time, maybe a couple of tweaks, also with runners in front of him, with new forwards, I think he'll start. I think Odegaard will start to get back to what we knew before.
I back him, but it looks peak, bro. I can't lie to you with Odegaard. Like, I back him, but it's looking dark.
For sure. I think I'm not looking at that and going, we need a Musiala or a Wirtz. I think we can, it would be nice, but I think there's bigger priorities. For me, I think with Vieiraa back in the squad, with Waneri and with Odegaard, with some competition and some rotation, I think we can do all right. But my point is, I just don't want to get too attached to this. But he's great out of possession. Yeah, cool.
He should be great out of possession. If it wasn't Martin Odegaard, and this is someone that's probably the biggest Martin Odegaard fan, if it was like a big him up, but a Scott McTominay, and they were in a tough patch of form, and we was talking about they work hard off the ball and this and that, it's not going to fly. And even me, I think you've said it slyly and I've said it. I'm personally like, especially when we talk about Martinelli or Odegaard, where you need relationships and you're missing this one and that one. These are all valid claims, but I think it gets a bit scary. You mentioned Fabio Vieiraa. You reckon he's back in the team next year in some capacity?
He's the sort of player who basically it is price, and if he's not if we're not getting, you know, I don't want to name a price, but if we're not getting a very good price for him, 30 million, 35 million, like I don't know why we wouldn't keep him around, because he does have a brilliant final ball. I think he's something that we don't have in the squad in terms of like those whipped crosses. He really is, like, in certain game states, I think he could be really, really useful for us. I look at that group of Odegaard, Vieiraa, and Waneri, and I think there's a lot there. There's a lot there as a sort of the right-sided eight. My point is, I just think that let's be open to Zubimendi and Rice plus. Like, I just feel, I don't think Max Down was going to play a massive, massive part next season.
Tranquillo, but big future.
Yeah, big future. But yeah, look, like, I just think with Vieiraa, when we have a creativity and final ball issue, I think, if you look at the numbers, he's literally just isolating that skill. He was up there with like De Bruyne and Trent in terms of how threatening his final ball was. I think it's worth keeping around. Like, the thing is, in every window, there's for me, there's things you have to do, there's things you would like to do. Have to do, want to do, would like to do, and that's a would like to do for me. I'd like a creative midfielder, but we can get through. You have to sign a forward too, I would say. You probably want to get another defender in, and it would be nice to get a creative midfielder, because I think we have enough.
I think you're bang on the money. It'd be nice. Like, it's a bit of a humbling experience in my 30 years going from Wenger, where I used to beg him for no more creative players, where we're shoehorning them out wide, where it's a bit of a rarity. You mentioned the Madrid game, and just in line in this conversation, it made me think about individual brilliance and stardust. Now, obviously, everybody knows what that is. Good players can turn games in their head. Me and Alex have spoken about this before. I do think there's an element of, quite frankly, when shit just hits the fan at Arsenal, when everything's terrible, can we get out of jail? Games we deserve to lose, can we go and nick them? Maybe because of individual brilliance or whatever. Now, I look at, you mentioned Real Madrid, and it's on brand, because I do think in an ideal world, they're the kind of games that Mikel Arteta would like, in that, when he says all the best team in the Champions League and all the statistics, and I know someone made a joke about Phil Tilt, all of that reflects what we saw, which was domination and competitiveness. Then you've got the romanticness, where nobody saw Declan Rice scoring a scream of a free kick, not once, let alone twice. Do you think it's a thing where either the players, I'm not expecting them to score free kicks, but they need to do that, take the mantelpiece on their own and do that? Or do you think Mikel Arteta has to kind of pull back the shackles with what he wants from a system and kind of let the individuals thrive, particularly in the final third? Like, where would it be for you?
I think it comes back to, I think Mikel can do certain things like I've spoken a lot about.
Some say micromanagers.
Yeah, I possibly, and we are very static in the final third. I really noticed that against Liverpool, because they're so fluid. We're so static in the final third, but also we're playing with players that we probably don't want to be out there. I think a lot of this comes back to talent. Look, Mikel can do certain things. I think our ability to turn turnovers into shots is something in the stats that I would love to see change. I think we don't move the ball quick enough in the final third. We don't take enough shots. Like, there's a lot of things that are on the system. But if you change 2 out of 3 of your front 3, then I think that a lot of that changes. So I do think
dynamic changes.
A lot of that comes back to talent. If you go and get a Shesco and a Nico Williams, and you have a fresh Havertz and you have a fresh Martinelli and all those sorts of things, I think you can create a really exciting front 5 who are sort of coming in. If you look at what Liverpool do, they have so many options in Gakpo and Salah and Diaz and Jota and whatever. They keep them fit and they're rotating them constantly, and they're saying, right, you go on for 30 minutes, you do this, and they can run. And we can't run at the minute, which is a big thing. So yeah, I do hear the system arguments, and there absolutely is some of that. Like, please don't get me wrong, but I also think if you change, as I say, change 2 of the front 3, something's going to shift.
Where do you I want to get into the Berta stuff in a minute, yeah, but where do you see Berta? Because on one hand, do you think, in fact, first thing, do you think we're putting too much faith in Berta? Because obviously the track record speaks for itself. We've not been happy with the transfer market. Clearly, Mikel Arteta, whether people like him or not, he needs help. Are we putting too much faith in him? And if we are, and it doesn't work out, do you think he's a potential fall guy?
Well, it sounds like you've got some faith in him. You said it.
I've got bare faith in Berta, man. It's something new. Look at it. I've not seen an interview. Just straight business.
Yes, it's strange, isn't it? Because we would have thought he would, and it's something I actually wanted from a new sporting director. I think we were speaking about last time. I wanted a bit more communication, which is a shame. But yeah, we'll see. Ultimately, what matters more is what he does. Look, you look at the track record and you look at the comments and you look at the work so far, I think Berta is at least going to position us better, I think, in terms of in the market. I think something that people, look at like the Gyokeres links or the Zubamendi, whatever it is. I feel like when he first came in, there was a lot of links that came out, and we were going, "Whoa, okay, Christ!"
Things change quickly.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a slightly more contacts led and slightly more, okay, who's doing what are you doing? Like, I want to be involved in I don't think we're going to get him, but my point is, where's Florian Wirtz going? When Jude Bellingham was on the table a couple of summers ago, where's he going? It's those sorts of conversations. I'm not saying we're to get them, but I want Arsenal to at least be in, when you see so-and-so is in the race, I would love that, because in the end, at the top level, it's about talent. And I look at like someone like a Dean Hoyson, and I was really pleased that we were in that race. Actually, we did a scouted episode on him, looking at him on
check that out
thanks, mate, on Y Scout, and he looks really, really good. Like, he's so smooth on the ball. He's really crisp. I think honestly, there's some fullback versatility as well there. Like, I could have seen that. Obviously, he's an aerial target. He's his balls through the lines are fantastic. He's great off both feet. Like he's a line leader. He's going to be one of the next best centre backs in the world. So I'm really pleased that no matter
against us.
Exactly. No matter the situation, £50 million in 3 installments, you could have 6 more William Salibas and Gabriels. You need to be in that race. You know what I mean? It's just that's the best talent. So yeah, for me, I'm pleased that we were in that conversation, because I'm not sure we would have been before, maybe without Berta. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Look, he, as you ask, I think he could become a fall guy, but ultimately, I don't think he. If Arsenal fall short again next year, I don't think anyone's going to be saying this is all on Andrea Berta. We're going to be looking at the whole project and going, here we are again, basically.
I got to ask you the question then. If we don't win the trophy next year, what happens to the gaffer, man?
It obviously does depend how it happens, but like the window of like how it happens is closing and closing and closing and closing.
Getting to bottom line business now.
Yeah. I think it becomes very, very hard to see a path forward, is what I'd say. It will then become about who's available, where the squad's at, who's moving on, who's staying. Like it would become a case of kind of, okay, how do we rejig this? Because it may well be we go.
I like Cesc Fabregas. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, he certainly speaks well. Look, we can't. In the same way with players, we shouldn't get attached to a manager. We have to look at what's happening, and we have to get serious about what we need to do. But yeah, I honestly like it. I just have to wait to see how the year shakes out. I don't know. I can sort of imagine myself next summer, if he hasn't won something, going maybe like Arteta isn't the guy potentially, but
maybe you're the Xavi and we need a handsy flick. That's not a disrespect.
Possibly. So, but I would have to. It's very hard to think a year ahead and go, okay, well that's happened. I don't know, basically.
I think you're bang on the money, and all my hope is with going back to Berta. I don't want to exaggerate, and I don't think Berta will ever be in the same conversation as someone like a David Dein. But I think definitely post David Dein, you've got to probably be our most important person in that regards. And I do think there's like kind of what we're talking about. It's not just Arteta or Berta or even Edu, all the players. It's more the culture of the football club. And I don't think one man can change that in a matter of months, nor do I know if this will be the summer where we'll say it's the Berta summer. But I have to caveat that with, I do think people behave at times like Mikel Arteta is a bit of a damsel in distress, in which I hear it, he's been short-strawed a lot of the time at times. But if you didn't believe you could do what you need to do at this football club, you wouldn't have signed for the club. You wouldn't have signed a new deal for the football club. So where do we go with that? Where it comes to Berta, I hope Arteta and Berta are kind of at level headings. And what I mean by that is, if Arsenal was a family and the Cronkies were obviously, the dad, it has felt for all of Edu's faults that Mikel Arteta is the prodigal son. He's the golden boy, a bit like Gabriel Magalhaes and Saliba, depending on who makes mistakes. And it does feel like at times Arteta hasn't got his way, but a lot of the times he has. I hope him and Arteta are at an equal footing, in the sense that I think this summer, bro, has to make sense. By all means, I'm not against Arteta if he wants projects, if he wants another Marino, Kai Havertz kind of guy. But I think Berta has to push back and say, do you know what? We just need a number 9. Regardless of how you jig it about deep blocks and all of that, the guy needs to be able to score goals. The wingers need to be able to take people on. Just kind of strip things back. Even going back to this Garcia lad at Espanyol, I like him in goal. But if there is a case of our budget doesn't accommodate having to spend 30 million euros, can we pivot? That's where I'm looking at Berta, and that's where I'm looking at the whole club, because honestly, I think the club have let the fans down, and I think the players have been let down. I think Arteta, you've done a lot wrong and a lot right, and I think people above you, the only one that I would absolve is Berta. I want to ask this question on screen. Sorry. He's obviously a City fan. Big up Low Fat, Mo Fat, what a name. But he has said, I've answered this before, but are Arsenal underachieving? Do you expect more, or is this the norm for Arsenal competing and just being a good team? Where are you at with that?
It depends,
It's like a techie one.
You can take it many different ways. You could say, well, have we got the highest net spend over the last 5 years? No. So what's our wage bill? I think we all know we're underachieving for ourselves, right? Like we have
%.
We have seen the level of this team. Which is why I think people are willing to be a bit more like, actually, okay, right, come on, like let's see us after a proper summer, like with some proper signings, etc. Because I do, we see the City 5-1 game, we see the Real Madrid game, we see we see how we dealt with PSG in certain aspects.
Flirting with success, man.
Yeah, we're really close. It's like, I don't think anyone thinks we're not close. It's just basically the question is, you're so close. Do you want to rip it up and start again, or do you want to go again, basically, and try and go through that pain? But right now we're in pain, aren't we? We're in a lot of pain, and it's really frustrating. Yep. It's hard to say overachieving or underachieving. I don't know, but I think you can only look at yourselves. But even within looking at yourself, you have to consider what other teams are doing around you and the ambition level they're showing, and go, okay, I'm looking at myself and I'm going, I'm not achieving for myself, and I'm not doing this. But then, am I giving myself the conditions that other teams are? Am I in the conversations for the best talents in the world? Am I being as ruthless as I can with contracts and players and those sorts of things? And I don't know if we always are. Yeah, I mean,
this comment killed me.
Why have you got 4 cups?
I had 2 cups of coffee, and I thought, you know what? Let me just combine them. I like the look of it. I don't know, man. I'm quite childish like that, man.
You're gonna end up with 7, 8, 9.
Yep. Costco knows I'm a regular offender for buying these kind of cups, man. Friendly Anaconda, what
Arsenal, to be fair.
and that's what sucks, man. And I think you're right. And I think the biggest praise and biggest criticism I can give our football club is, I genuinely think we're our own worst enemies. I'm not here to say we're the biggest and baddest, but as crap as we might have been in comparison to the other years, we flirted with getting into a final. Now, we didn't get over the line. I think we shot ourselves in the foot in 2 semi-finals. I think it was commendable against Real Madrid. I felt a bit of a mixed bag, kind of what we've been talking about, kind of led to our demise against PSG. But there was an element of, I just think our best is not enough. Like, it's just not enough. It just comes down to individual brilliance and quality. You look at the first 20 minutes against PSG in the second leg, who knows? We score goals and have a striker, or players convert chances. It's a very different conversation. Now, kind of what you said, and I think you're bang on the money at the beginning in that, obviously, if key players are missing, everybody's going to be in trouble. But it just feels like one player missing or one player being out, it means we have to rejig things, like you saw in the first leg against PSG versus away from home. And we kind of struggled. And these are going to be factors, but these are the things that kind of need to change. Like, I must admit, maybe I'm looking at it as a bit of pub chat, but if I share my screen with you, I'm not saying I want to be in a Conference League final or Europa League final or whatever, and I definitely hope these not lose. But we're obviously we ain't in the final, bro. Like, we're not in the final. Like, we're not winning the trophy this year, and it sucks, because I must admit, I'm quite pessimistic on the Champions League. But when we beat Real Madrid, you couldn't help but flirt and think, you know what, 180 minutes from a final, you just never know. Like, how does this make you feel that we're not in the final?
I mean, I can't even count it as the fact that Spurs are going to win a Europa League.
Yeah, I forget that we're United fans for that.
It's obviously annoying. I mean, only one of those is guaranteed a win, maybe 2 with Chelsea. But yeah, it's painful. It's painful, but yeah. So there's no other way around it. It's really painful. But the only answer to that is to ensure, to guarantee, to leave no stone unturned to ensure that doesn't happen again. Like, the job of turning margins in your favor is not, basically go again and do this. We're so close, so we just do the same thing again and it'll turn for us. No, make it impossible for it not to turn your way.
Maximize what you can maximize, bro.
And that is being really, really, really ruthless with talent, unfortunately, and really ruthless with ourselves, and really ruthless with our system and our players and our contracts and every aspect of Arsenal. We have to be, and it's not like being ruthless isn't looking at certain players and going, yeah, but if you did this and did that, and yeah, but what about this? But he had a good seat.
No. We're holding too many players' hands now, man. Like, let's be brutally honest. Like, you're all good guys. I'm not saying, run you out of the club and whatever, but we need to be cruel to be kind. We need to be not necessarily harsh on individuals, but harsh on the problem. There's too many fair weather players here, unfortunately, and they're not picking themselves and whatnot. But it's simple maths. We've got over 100 goals in all comps. We know we spread the goals around and things of that ilk. But when it truly, truly matters, backs are against the wall. Who is getting the goals? Who is standing up to be counted? This is just the reality. Like, it's the same 3, 4, 5 players that we know are going to give us a certain level. And shout out to Miles Lewis-Skelly. He's already become one of our more consistent players, which, again, if I was a more significantly experienced teammate of his, I would feel a bit of a way sort of thing. And that brings me on to this year. Obviously, Miles Lewis-Skelly wasn't included in the young player of the season, and William Saliba was. Where are you at with that?
He should have been. I don't understand the rulings. I don't understand what 24-year-old player. Like, okay, I get it. He was 23 at the beginning of the season, but it makes no sense to me. Also, Liam Delap being on there, I was like, this isn't fair, because like maybe you should be able to get relegated, but if it feels like you shouldn't, be able to be relegated and be on the Premier League Young Player of the Year.
I don't understand that one. Quality player, though.
Oh yeah, Palmer as well. Yeah, So Miles was robbed there, but. It's honestly, with those sorts of things, I don't really care massively.
I'm with you with that, man. At the end of the day, Miles Lewis-Skelly's whatever his task, him and Nwaneri to a degree, to be fair, whatever their goal was at the start of this season to where they are now, that's all you can ask for, man. All the trophies and individual trophies, it all comes with whatever it comes with. I'm sure you've seen this year, but like, we're going to, obviously, as we close out, we're going to move this on to transfers. If Arsenal only have 100 million to spend on new signings, how does that make you feel? Do you think that's enough?
No, I don't. I also don't really buy that personally. I think
crazy if true.
I don't see that personally. I don't know, but like, obviously, I think based on how we're moving and the people we're talking to, doesn't feel like a club with only 100 million to spend. I mean, if it is true, then that is incredibly concerning, and I'd be questioning the PSR position that we're in. But ultimately, I look at our commercial jumps off the field. I look at our finishing in the Champions League places. We got even further than the Champions League this year, which is another bit of revenue.
Everyone go buy the new shirt, man. Every penny counts.
Yeah, we've got some sales. Yeah, as long as we all buy the shirt. Yeah, but like I find that. I just find it gut sense quite hard to believe we only have 100 million. That's like Brighton's budget. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't buy that.
I mean, I just think it's rage bait. Now, I'm sure you've seen us linked with Nico Williams and Rodrigo. What do you make of those two players? Which one would you prefer? Do you think we could end up with? Do you actually think we'll end up with either?
Bro, I hope so. I hope so, because again, when we're saying how do we move on from this season and being ruthless with talent, right? Like, these are two of the best wingers in the world. Like, well, I think Nico Williams isn't maybe quite in that category, but I think he will get there. But Rodrigo is objectively one of the best wingers in the world, and if he's available, it's similar to the Hoyson thing. It's similar to the Wirtz thing, whatever. Like talent like that. Clubs like Bayern Munich basically every summer go out and go, who's the best player available? Let's go and get him. That's pretty much what they don't like sign. And again, we've got a slightly different model. We're not Bayern Munich, that's fine. But if we can go and get a player like Rodrigo, if he is available, if we can offer him a project and offer him the right wages, etc., then I don't see why you wouldn't go and do that. That just because it's like, oh well, it's not almost like Nico Williams feels more like an Arsenal signing because he's young and he's probably got more to prove in the game.
Kind of talent.
Yeah, we signing established stars who are going to come in and also Rodrigo is not a egotistical kind of forward who's just going to do nothing. He's a proper player.
He'll work hard off the ball as well, which Arteta love.
Exactly. So yeah, I Nico Williams feels very much the Arsenal signing, But I want it maybe to be the new Arsenal signing would be a Rodrigo, and I would.
That's a market opportunity, man. That is what you call him. If he genuinely wants to leave, I mean, the only caveat with that is Arsenal and everyone will throw their hat into the ring in it. But dreams are there in it. I didn't believe we'd sign a Aubameyang, Mesut Ozil, or Alexis Sanchez, and I know it's different, but I was proven wrong. So you never know. I mean, I've titled it. Who would you prefer out of Gyokeres and obviously Benjamin Šeško? Have you changed your thoughts on Gyokeres?
I can't say I have. Look, I think Gyokeres has some attributes that absolutely do help. Kick ball hard at net, poaching, transitions. But there's just, for me, in terms of looking after it and build up, in terms of in the air, in terms of just his technical quality, like I just recommend everyone to go and watch him. Like even just his goals, like watch the build up to his goals. He's not a particularly clean technician, whereas I think Shesco maybe is less refined as a finisher, as a ruthless finisher, but there's so much more upside, and I think he already adds skills that Gyokeres doesn't have. I think he adds height in terms of and a presence in the box. I think in terms of getting shots off from outside the box, I think he adds that. I think if you put Šeško in the right positions, he gives you the upside that you think that Gyokeres would give you, and also will be able to sort of scale to other aspects of his game. I think ultimately Gyokeres, I just can't see looking after the ball well enough in the Premier League. I think if you look at a lot of his goals, they're scored drifting to the left, cutting in a defender who some of the defending is dodgy. I must admit, it's really, really poor, and burying it bottom corner. I just don't think you'll get that space in the Premier League. Whereas I think Šeško's a lot more to his game, even if he maybe hasn't refined that, final action.
So then, like, why do you think it's changed then, Matt? Like, is it just a Berta thing? Because Berta apparently liked him at Atletico Madrid. It felt like as soon as Berta was announced, David Ornstein came out and obviously said we're looking at Gyokeres. Like, do you think Berta is a bit different to the Arsenal project in that it always feels like we're looking after tomorrow, not necessarily today? I only say that because obviously Gyokeres, fair enough, he might not have the potential that Sesko has, because obviously Sesko's younger, but he's 26. He kind of understands his job. He's played in a couple of leagues now. He's kind of ready right now. And even with that, you could throw in the fact that it seems like we're keen to keep Trossard on Partey. Like, what do you think? Why do you think there's been a change, or why do you think Berta's so keen on a Gyokeres? Is it the fact that he's 26 and it's win now mode and we need to get away from potential?
Probably, and I think he's probably looked at it at Atletico Madrid, where I think he make it a little bit more sense, and gone, yeah, that makes sense. Also, for the price, Gyokeres, like, as a kind of, as an idea, makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, we're not blind to the fact there's many, many options out there. There's Ekitike, João Pedro, there's Benjamin Šeško, there's Viktor Gyokeres. I think Gyokeres makes sense as an option because of the money, and because he's done it in various leagues and in the Champions League, and he does make sense. I'm not when I say Gyokeres, I don't love, it doesn't mean, if we signed him for £50 million and pretty low wages, honestly, that's a brilliant signing.
If he scored goals, you're celebrating. So I don't think people can misunderstand you in that regard.
Exactly. And if he bangs, of course, we'll be buzzing. It's just as an option, like, he's one of the options. I imagine he's gone up the list because probably before, but also, mate, maybe you need someone who's just in those sort of boardrooms going like, right, come on, like, let's have a look at this guy, like, and maybe a targets that we wouldn't necessarily previously look at because they don't get through the limitations. I think Arteta
initial entry requirements.
Arteta loves versatile, young, room for growth, etc. And we've looked, Saliba, Gabriel, Saka, Rice, like he's right about that. Those guys have grown into those players, but we're trying to win now.
Yeah.
And I think Šeško could grow into that player who is just a complete, Saka is a complete right winger. Saliba, Gabriel, yeah, they have the strengths and weaknesses or whatever, but they're complete players. I think that's what Mikel wants to invest in, which is fair, because that means you don't limit the system. And Šeško, I think, can be that in 2 to 3 years. But Gyokeres has his limitations, but he also has massive strengths. And maybe that wouldn't get through the entry requirements, as you say.
Am I being greedy for saying maybe I know we're not going to get 2 strikers, but could there be a scope for, if not necessarily these 2, but 2 strikers in a sense of, I know Kai Havertz, and I wonder what happens with Kai if he plays in midfield more, but could you make a case of, Gyokeres is your right now guy, your proven kind of talent, knows his role, and then you've got Sesko, who's also right now, but it's more short, medium, and long term. Am I being a bit greedy or simplistic in thinking, you know what, 2 strikers could do the world of good here?
Look, it has to be on the table. We need a revamp in that department, regardless. Who's staying? Saka is definitely staying. Kai Havertz is definitely staying. Jesus, we can't move on. Martinelli and Trossard, they're on the table for me, at least.
It's up in the air, yeah.
I think for me, with Martinelli, look, I love Martinelli. I'd love him to work out at Arsenal. I just think you have to facilitate him. Basically, it's about, okay, you can go and buy him an overlapping fullback and get him in central touches.
We're past all of that now, man.
But like, do you believe in that talent? Because if you're buying an overlapping fullback, where's Miles going? Where's Declan stood? Like, you know, if you're pushing the team to him, if he's getting more touches, because Saka's getting less touches, it's like you, and it's basically, do you believe in that talent? And honestly, I just, at this point, I'm sorry, I don't. So I think he's a brilliant player and can contribute for us if we can have him as depth. If we could sign, bro, like Rodrigo and Sesko on top of, and you keep Martinelli and somebody sell Trossard, oh my God, that's amazing.
That's where I'm at with Martinelli and Odegaard. Like, it's either you kick on or you become squad players, or we thingy. And I'm exaggerating, but potentially you lot are, maybe not so much this season, but playing for your futures. If Odegaard has another season like this and Martinelli is another year of not what he used to do, if you're better next summer, that might be something. Because I know it's not all about how much you get paid and money and all of that jazz. But at the end of the day, as much as I hate it, football's a business, innit? And there are some players that are on big deals. You know, when Arteta and Edu first came in, they ripped up the contracts. We were in a bit of good health. Years later, it feels like we need a bit of a revamp. An unpopular opinion, in these last 5, or I say 3 years, as I said earlier, if we won a Champions League, won Prems, picked up some domestic cups, I still think we'd kind of have to do what we're talking about doing in the summer. And naturally, I think the squad's evolved. I think being together for the vast majority of these boys, 3, potentially 4 years, provided just for this example that they're all here next season. It's been a long time. The only reason as to why I think Gyokeres might be above Sesko in things that we haven't said is it appears that he's quote unquote cheaper. It feels like whatever you read about Sesko, it feels like it's quite of an expensive addition. And I like him. I'm sure you see it as well with your line of work on YouTube and that. It feels like there's no in between for Sesko. It feels like people either rate him or he's just not good enough. Like people call him Benjamin Tesco. Like the slander names would be crazy, but I'm here for him, man. I'm here for it. I mean, we can skip over that. I have to ask you, João Pedro, man. That's a new name that's been thrown in. What do you make of his signing, if it did happen? You fan? You on it?
I like him. Again, is it another hard-working, versatile forward who presses well and, you know, does the right things for Arteta, but isn't that necessarily hungry for goals and is that sort of line leader that people are looking for? Look, he may not be out there, and that's why I think Shesco is for me the closest, because he can become that. Certainly, I think it's almost guaranteed he becomes that. And mate, like we're not that far away. I think for me, it's
that's
about
the annoying thing.
Yeah, it's not. We don't need to score 30 more goals. We just need to score a couple more goals and get over a few more lines.
Like, and when it really matters,
literally it. So for me, it's about closing a skills gap. And I think that's why I push for Shesco, because I think he closes a lot of our skills gap in terms of in transitions and an aerial threat and pushing the line back and runs in behind, a bit more pace, etc., etc. João Pedro is up there. It depends. Like for example, he might be an option if we go and sign Rodrigo. He might be like if we sign Rodrigo, that is a starting left winger who I think would really thrive at Arsenal. But João Pedro as a versatile forward, I wouldn't hate it, but he's going to be a lot of money.
Like you said there, a lot of money. Like I'm popular opinion. I don't think he leads the line for Arsenal. I think it's, but what you said there, like you're just a versatile attacker. I think it's a non-starter because he's going to cost too much peas. Like, he's just going to cost a lot of money. Brighton, we know how Brighton operate. We've seen the fees for Cucurella and Caicedo. Benjamin White's been 50 million well spent, but we had to pay a premium off the back of a guy having 1 Premier League season. And then you look at João Pedro, who's kind of like their talismanic figure, give or take, with him and Matoma. It's a myth, really and truly. I understand why there's admiration. Us, Liverpool and Chelsea have all been linked. I can't say I buy too much into that. We've gone over Zubamendi and the whole left-back stuff. First time you haven't got at my tabs, my guy. We saying for Xavi Simons.
I did think it earlier. I thought, no, what was that? That's for me that third category I mentioned earlier, like the need, want, would like if we could do it, then great. But like I think because I feel with Vieiraa coming back, we've got enough to get through, maybe to at least till January to
you really want Fabio back in it. You keep saying it.
Well, I just want to give him an option. Like I want to give him a chance because it's an area of the pitch that we do have one of the most exciting young talents in the world, and theoretically one of the best players in the Premier League. And so, like, you know, it's just about hopefully giving some different conditions and a bit more rotation. I'm not against eventually moving on, but to me, right now we've got bigger priorities.
What are you saying for Partey? Because it seems like we want him to stay. It seems like he's wanting to stay as well. He's rejected offers from Saudi Arabia. It feels like a bit piggy banking off what I said as well. It feels like Bert has kind of changed it. Like, what do you think of Partey staying, especially with Zubamendi coming in?
It's just not for me. I want new legs in the midfield. I like in terms of him turning over the shoulder and running. He's towing a caravan at this point, mate. Like he's been brilliant in possession. He has at points this season. He's stayed fit. Fair play to him. But it's the first out of his 5 years of contract. He's stayed fit. He's making Atalanta mistake, the not closing Pedro Neto down. He's the back post against Villa, the 2 goals against PSG. He's at fault for. Nah, man. He's just for me. Like I just think sometimes it comes time to move on. We need fresh legs in there. There's so many midfielders out there that can be that. You know, if we're signing Zubamendi, that tells like Partey's coming out of the team. So is he a player that you want to come in and be rotating? Maybe, but he's
not really a plug and play kind of player like that.
He needs like for me, Partey is the sort of player who needs to play 10 games in a row before he's at his best. I think he's on like 200 grand a week or something. Partey, like if you're going to extend, so for me, I'd move on. But it sounds like we're trying to time down.
You don't feel he's been one of our more consistent players this season? To be fair to him,
at points, but honestly, end of the season, you could see the minutes going into his legs, and I thought physically he just looked well off it. I mean, like, you know, look at how Liverpool broke through us. Like he was absolutely nowhere, mate. And I'm sorry, like there's no other player on our team who has made like 6 or 7 massive errors that are leading to goals in terms of box defending. Like, and I think I'm forgetting some, but I just named like 5 or 6. I think there's more. Like, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't watch that and think, yeah, you're in my team.
I mean, I won't ask you about Saliba and Real Madrid. It seems like they're leaving us alone for at least a year. We've gone over that. Would you go for Osimhen? Because I saw this before we was about to go online, yeah, and he's available for 60 million, the same price as Gyokeres. Now, obviously, there's wages and all of that kind of jazz, but would you go for Osimhen if it was just that and his wages were quote unquote reasonable?
Personally, I think we're talking about Shesco and Yarez because they're there. I would love that, mate. I would love that. Like I think right now he's the plug and play. I think Shesco goes beyond him eventually, but he's the plug and play striker that people would from day one, from moment one, be really excited by. And I think I watched that goal that Lamine Yamal scored yesterday, and there's something about it. It's not, yeah, bro. He's
best in the world.
He's the best in the world, and for me, like I'm gonna say it, I thought no one would ever get near Messi, and I'm not saying he will. But I'm saying right now, if at 17 years old, if you're doing that, if your career, you could go near that.
I want it to happen, man. Even the way he attacks the space, like he just sees it. Go on, man, because I don't want to turn this into a Yalmao's waffling session. Everyone knows how much of a fan I am. Like,
but
bring football back.
Aside, he's got, and when you score a goal like that, when you concede a goal like that, if we could say we were Arsenal, we conceded that goal.
Fair enough.
We just go, oh. And you sit back naturally as a team. You get like, what can you do with a talent like that? There is something about players who are so talented that the system kind of falls apart. I'm not saying Yamal is Messi now. I'm saying at 17, if you had to build out a career, then I think he might get close. Or
his CV is strong already, man. El Clasicos, Euros, Champions League knockout stages. I mean, the whole Messi thing's one in itself, but Yamal's an absolute player, man. To have him and Pedri, I'm jealous of Barcelona, I must admit.
It's crazy. But yeah, I just think when you have someone of that talent level, I'm not saying we can go get Yamal, but someone who can score those like outside the box goals, who can cut in and rifle at top bins, it makes a team feel something and defend differently.
Makes them fear.
It makes it like, and people are scared of players like Yamal. It takes like 3 or 4 defenders to deal with him. And people are scared of us, but like Saka is amazing, but doesn't quite have that physical burst, I would say, that Yamal has in that same way. I think he's got other qualities actually that I would say are better than Yamal in terms of looking after the ball. But I think that fear is something I want. And I think my point is that Osimhen, I think, would give us a bit of that fear in terms of when he's running.
And that's the thing, man. Like you kind of indirectly touched on it. We do get a bit of it with Saka. I do think, like, one, if Saka is 5-6 players are marking Saka out the game. Sorry, I need other players to be able to exploit the fact that these guys are occupied elsewhere. Two, it factors into the game plan, innit? Because if you've got a Saka or a Salah or a great striker, a manager might want to do X, Y, Z, but when he plays us, he has to mitigate against it. And it's just a case. We keep saying it. I think there is an element of we just need players with a bit of individual brilliance, man. If I'm honest with you, have you seen Mikel Garcia? And do you think he's worth the money? And if we do sign him, surely at some point Arteta is going to have to decide between David Raya and him.
Look, again, it comes down to this. Is for me is a Joan Garcia type backup is a like rather than a need. Because I think we could get through with another loan deal, or we can do something cheaper. If we're looking to move on, and ultimately it comes back to talent, doesn't it? If we think Joan Garcia is going to be the next best thing, then great. For me, like, again, it comes back to priorities. I don't want to be spending, and order of business is not priority, but I don't want to be spending 25-30 million pounds of the budget to go and sign him if it stops us doing something else. So it just depends.
Kiwior, man, they come a long way. Apparently, Arsenal want to give him a new contract. Apparently, he's still adamant on wanting to go. What do you do with Kiwior? Because for me, I want to keep him for depth. But if he wants to go, then the player wants to go. And he seems like a player. Obviously, his stock has risen, but he seems like a player that's had admirers. And it's not the same as Ainsley Maitland-Niles. But sometimes we don't sell when the stock's high, just like with Ainsley. So what would you do with Kiwior, man?
I'd try and keep him if we can. Like, I really would. Because I don't know many third choice left centre backs and probably third choice left backs who can do pretty well up against Mbappe. So if we can keep him, then great. But he might also be a player whose stock has risen and it might be time to cash in. He probably deserves to go. If we can keep him, then great. But he's shown his quality, which I think a lot of the Arsenal players have actually came out and said, look, that's always been there. He's always been there.
Fair play to him, man. You're proving me wrong. Fair play, Kiwior.
Prove me wrong 100%. So if we can keep him, great, but he might be another player who you cash in on for 30, hopefully. Like, I would just love to see Arsenal get, how much was that Van den Berg that Brentford bought?
He was at Liverpool at one point, isn't it?
How much did they get for him? It was like 30, it wasn't 30 million, was it? Am I making that up?
Sometimes you just got to sell at a premium, man. And I don't know how it works, but what's his name, man? There's a player that City bought. He's not a centre back, but he's like an attacking player. They bought him. I think he technically made his City debut there for 2 minutes, and I think they're selling him to Cesc Fabregas's Como for 30-odd million quid now. Yeah, like I know. Yeah, exactly. Now I know the premits are different, like the premises are different, but we don't do enough of that kind of smart kind of business. If I'm honest.
But Brentford signed Vandenberg for £25 million, and I can't you can't tell me that he put up you can't tell me that we can't get a 30-40 million pounds for Jakub Kiwior. I'm sorry, we've got to be able to,
especially if you bring in Hato as well, man. You a fan of Semenyo?
Yes, big fan.
70 million though, rumors.
Big fan. I think for me, Osimhen and Semenyo, big fan of that. Big fan. That's a
Jure and Buemo.
Yeah.
That's who I want.
Osimhen and Semenyo. That's a lot of transition power. That's a lot of shots. That's a lot of what Arsenal lack.
And again, you look at the long balls, actually, how Bournemouth play, and the long throws we tried against PSG. I think the coaching staff will love Semenyo and it will go down the treat, man. Would you make it Jamie Gittins?
We watched him. Good player. Dribble wise, unbelievable. I don't know whether when he can face you up, like if he's running at you and facing you up, then great. I think he could suit our current left wing slot. I don't know if he's ready yet in terms of put that top level output, but again,
still a bit of a project.
Yeah, again, it's an option. I think I just don't want another. In terms of our left wing right now, I think Martinelli's take on percentage is like It's like 50% across Europe. Like he's not one of the best. Gittins is right up there. So that would immediately jump and get more balls into the box. He'd get more inside. I think he's a little bit selfish from what I've seen, but we sort of need that as well. No, that's what I'm saying. So that's what we need that. But yeah, for me, Semenyo's more ready-made, and I think would probably have a quicker impact. Again, you could go and sign Gittins and Sesko, and that's great for 3 years down the line. But we're trying to win now, aren't we?
And that's the annoying thing. I completely off topic here, but obviously you got a Rodrigo. Whether we're able to sign him, I hope we are. Wouldn't surprise me if we don't. And then you've got Nico Williams. No clue what he's going to be saying. Did the left wing options really scream out to you like that? Like, you know, Gittins is a decent kind of player, as you said. If you're talking 2-3 years, and if he signed, I'd be happy. But bar the obvious names that we're linked with, does left wing really scream out to you? Like there's a whole bunch of options that you're like, yeah, go and get that one. Because I find myself in that, yeah, there's a couple, but then I kind of pivot towards, there's certain players that might not, their strongest position might not be on the left, but I think you could do a job there, and you more kind of like an Embuemo. I'd more try and want to sign you because you kind of add to our greater attacking Arsenal. Like, what do you make of that? Because I'm just like, not really.
Honestly, I think there are options. Gittins, Leao, Rodrigo, Williams, Semenyo. There's 5. Like I think there are some decent options out there. I mean, the other thing. Do I want to say this?
Say it, man.
I've said this before. I hate people that think this is a criticism of him, because it's not. It's literally. I believe Bukayo Saka will be the world's best right winger, but could also be the world's best left winger. That's my belief, right? And I think a strong-footed overlap on that side, a strong-footed player on that side could do something. I think he could be basically the best on both sides. So if you have someone who you look at and you say you're better on the right, and that's the guy you want to go for, I'm way less averse to that than I think a lot of people. Personally,
I'm not against it, because obviously when Saka went from left back, he went left wing, and then he eventually went to the right. And with that, where I disagree is like, bro, Saka's our poster boy. I'm not moving him out that right hand side. He's kind of earned that spot. I do agree with the premise, because it could even open up the door for Vieiraa to get some more game time. But are you having Eze?
That argument's based on not necessarily that he couldn't do it. It's based on is it fair to say, like, almost like the disrespect?
It is the disrespect. It's like, what are you doing, moving our star boy?
Yeah. And this is the thing, because I remember talking about this in the Euros and stuff. Like, for me personally, I view it as a compliment. Some people will view it as disrespect, and that's fine. For me, I literally think Saka could be world class in like 5 or 6 positions. So that's my feeling on Saka.
You do lose him cutting in off that.
Of course, but my point is, if you had a talent that you think is, you know, let's say Lamine Yamal was available, right? and we sign Lamine Yamal, he goes right wing, and you move Saka over, and then you have the 2 best wingers in the world.
Saka, and you're going to have to go to the left.
Lamine Yamal will be less
or he plays
effective,
in 10.
But Lamine Yamal will be less effective on the left. My point is, it's a compliment to Saka. I believe he would be as good as he is right now, get the same numbers on the left. But to be honest, yeah, it's probably not something that people are going to.
I mean, my unpopular opinion, and I'm never going to see it, but I was watching Dembele play as a false 9 at PSG, and it made me think Yamal could end up there. But it also made me feel, you know what? One day I would, just as a bit of a joke, I'd love to see Saka play there, but it's never going to happen, and that's for another debate, man. Like, I really think it could be a case.
Yep.
I mean, we've gone over that, man. Last, I guess, going back over here, then. If you had to give it 10, like a rating out of 10, how realistic do you think Rodrigo is?
I don't know. With those guys, they've got teams of 30, 40 people around them. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sure this could have been leaked from somewhere. This could be posturing to get a new contract. I really don't know.
And they got a new manager, so who knows?
They got a new manager. Depends what he wants. I really don't know. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, Ozil. Am I right in saying that was a sort of new manager situation, or Mourinho had gone, or something like that?
No, I think Carlo just said F off. Like, they wanted to sell someone, like, just F off. Madrid doing Madrid stuff, and we was attentive to the situation.
Exactly. So for me, I think you have to look at the best talents in the world, and if they're available, you push for them. Even if Nico Williams is is the more sensible decision or the more long-term choice. If you have the best talent, one of the best talents in the world available, you change your plans and you do it.
Facts. You get it done. You get it done, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. We're gonna have to see what we're gonna do in the summer. Fingers, toes, everything crossed. Prediction for the weekend, then, before I let you get out of here, my boy. Newcastle could finish above us if they win their next 2 games. They've had our number. I'm gonna say 2-0 because surely, man, they've beat us 3-4 times now. Surely we get one. But where are you at,
bro? Who's available?
Well, you haven't no Marino.
There's
Flipping
no
now. Rice had fingers and everything crossed. He was in trainings, as was Kai.
So Rice and Kai were in training. So hopefully Rice is back. Was Timber in training?
I think so. I think he was pictured there.
Martinelli limped off or something. Something happened.
But then apparently reports say he limped back out. Like, well, not limped back out, but he came back out.
Honestly, mate,
horrible season.
If we make it through with a 0-0, I'd be all right. I really would.
So you're gonna go with 0-0, yeah?
Yeah, 0-0, and then we beat Southampton final day. That would be. I'd just get this season over with.
Just get it over with, man. Let's just focus on pre-season and go again. Before I let you get out of it, Alex, it's always a pleasure being here. Let people know they can find you, what content you got to come out. I've been watching the scouting vids. Where can they find that? All that stuff, man.
So yeah, check out content on the Canon podcast. We do main podcasts, scattered episodes, rewatches, all that sort of stuff, and lives, and then also sort of video essays over on the Different Knock.
Make sure you're following the guy, man. Again, the guy makes great content. He's at what? I think I watched the video yesterday. You're at like 82,000. So let's get to 100K before the end of the year or before the end of the season, people. And yeah, man, hopefully the next time I get him on the platform, we're doing tactical analysis about Rodrigo and this one and that one. But for now, people, smash the like button, subscribe. Alex, big up yourself on this early morning, my guy.
Cheers,
Come
mate.
on, my guy. Peace. Always